Hey guys, I really appreciate all the new subscribers and anyone who's checking out my channel right now. I'm really trying to break 1K subs so I can get my partnership back. If you could share, like, comment. I love feedback on my videos. I love hearing from people's experiences, and so let's just hop right in. So this video, I really wanted to talk about whether or not studio time is worth it. So what I'm talking about is, am I going to pay for studio time and services, or am I going to do everything myself and completely self-produce? And I think in today's day and age, equipment and technology has gotten to the point where a person can build their own studio and work out of their bedroom, office, garage. I'm in a garage right now, and actually be capable of producing some really good sounds and a really consistent product. So the question is it worth it to pay for studio time in 2019? I mean, there's still studios out there. There's producers and spaces that are much more in tune with a good production value. I mean, there's people that have live rooms that have, tons of high-end rack gear, really high-end software and preamps and mics and all the stuff, right? So the question is, when is it appropriate to start paying for those services versus doing it all on your own and investing in your own equipment and doing it in your own space? And it comes down to what is your needs and what is your product. I think virtually every musician now is very capable of recording their own music for demo quality at home. What I mean by that is that having a project studio, maybe just an interface, a basic mic, a DI box, and a couple cables, that's only going to set you back a couple $100. I mean, you can get an interface for around $100, $200, and some of the other bits and bobs that'll get you going pretty cheaply, right? And I think for sketching out original ideas and getting something started, this is totally appropriate and definitely the way to go. I would encourage anyone to at least do this little bit of investment if you already have a PC, laptop, whatever. If it's anything from newer than like 5-6 years, it's able to record audio decently enough that you're not going to have too much lag, and you'll be able to have a few tracks running and run a decent little session. And I think for sketching out ideas, anybody is capable of doing that, whether you just have like a single microphone and recording an amp or your vocal yourself. I think this is perfectly legitimate, and I think everyone should at least invest at this level. Now, when you start talking about making a greater investment in your home studio, when you start, getting into thousands of dollars spent, you're talking about high-end interfaces, preamps to be between your microphones and your interface. When you're talking about a treated space, I think this is super critical for the home studio to get a really good sound, especially for vocals and mic'd acoustic instruments. When you start talking about having a drum space to actually fully record live drums, that comes with a lot of, space constraints and noise constraints. I mean, there's a distinction between when it makes sense to just do it all yourself, or to invest in software, or farm out some of your needs as a musician. And I think this is where the debate really starts to split. So there's tons of guys who are perfectly willing to invest, tens of thousands of dollars over years into their home studios. And I think this is great. The gear's out there. The information and lessons are out there on how to use all this gear, how to find and pick a good preamp, how to find good microphones, how to record vocals properly, even if it's something as simple as you have your boom stand and you have one of those filters that kind of isolates some noise. I think that's great, and you can get a pretty polished sound with a couple $1,000s of investment. But where I think you need to start drawing the line and maybe, like I said, farm out some of these services and tracking and producing needs is when you're talking about, I want a very polished vocal sound. There's plenty of, rappers, home musicians who get a decent sound on their own. That's great. But I think to really get a polished vocal sound that's well tracked with really good preamps and good mics, I mean, if you're talking about a $5,000 to $10,000 investment just to record some vocals well, I see no problem with contacting a local studio or, linking up with someone in your area that actually has already made all the investment. You know, if you're talking about, I have an album, I need, you know, I need some well-recorded vocals on 5 songs. If you can get somebody that's willing to put in, you know, $100, willing to take like $100 to $200 per song, or, you know, you're paying by the hour and you can knock it out in a couple days, I think that is well worth it. I mean, why spend all the money when someone else already has and has all the equipment? You don't put yourself at a lot of risk for that. But I think where a lot of us in the past have gotten burned is that, you know, you get a hold of a local studio or a higher end studio and you say, okay, I want to record this stuff. And they say, okay, this is how much it is to rent my space, a couple $100 a day, you know, X dollar amount per hour, X dollar amount per project. And I hope everybody can make some money, you know, and you got to support your local musicians. The thing is that I think happened to a lot of us in the early days is you brought your equipment into a studio. Maybe someone's like, yeah, I'll record you guys, you know, cheap, whatever. You bring all your equipment in, you record for a night or two, maybe a weekend, and then they kind of do some rough mixing and they throw you back a result. And you're unsatisfied with it, you know. That's what happens, is like you have put your money out there, you put your time out there, you go into a studio and you're disappointed. And this happened to me a few times in the early days. We met up with a local guy. He had, you know, heavy investment in his space and in his equipment, but he just didn't know our sound. And we were still so new as musicians. I'm talking, this is like 10 years ago, maybe longer. You know, one of my first bands, it was our first experience in the studio. We didn't play to metronomes. We had very limited recording exposure, right? So we go into the studio and do what we do live. And the result that came back, it was just not good. It didn't sound like us. It didn't sound like something that was radio quality or shareable quality. It really just sounded like we threw some mics on during a practice, and the finished product wasn't great. And I think a lot of people have had that experience, right? So they go into a local studio, they paid some money, and the result wasn't good. I just had a discussion about this with a friend of mine this weekend, you know. The difference now is that there's so much knowledge, there's such a knowledge base on YouTube and in forums that you really can learn how to get a really good sound without spending tons of money, and how to use software to really optimize the gear that you have, right? And so recording yourself is super rewarding. I think everyone needs to get some experience, just even if you're just throwing together song ideas and writing. I mean, there's software out there that's just amazing. You know, I use Easy Drummer 2 from TuneTrack, and there's tons of other drum softwares. You look at the cost of even just the base equipment to record a drum set properly. I mean, you're talking, you know, let's say you're going to do an 8-mic setup, right? You got a bass, tom, snare, some overheads, maybe a room. You know, you use up 8 channels really fast. So to record 8 channels of drums, which isn't even as good as most studios do, you know, most good studios will run 16 plus channels of drums, right, to properly mic everything up. Let's talk 8. So you have all the microphones. Say you go with the cheapest microphone kits you can get. You're in microphones $500 to $1,000 before you're even out the door for recording drums properly. So let's say we're at $1,000 just for microphones. You got to get 8 cables. All right, that's another $100 on the low side. So we're at 11. You know, you need an interface that can record 8 tracks at the same time. Now you're talking about another, let's say $500 on the low end. So we're at $1,600. Now you need a computer that can handle that well and record it well without latency and lag. Okay, realistically, to do that, you're talking about $1,000 to $2,000. So you get into the thousands of dollars. And then this is the real part about recording drums. Then you need a space where you can actually play drums without complaints about volume for hours at a time, and run headphones, run monitoring, and have someone who's equipped to kind of know what they're doing. So the problem is, if you record drums, say, in a living room, in an untreated living room, it's going to sound like you recorded drums in a living room. And you can heavily sample, replace, and do a lot of processing, and you can get better sounds, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Easy Drummer 2, $150. It'll get you an amazing sound. The key with that software in particular is I invested a lot in the expansions. So the expansions is very pro recorded, mix quality, you know, high end demo quality. You can get a song idea put together. I can map out a specific drum pattern in about 5 minutes for a whole song. So $150 in 5 minutes. My time is saved. I didn't have to lug a whole kit around. I didn't have to invest in the kit itself. You know, a decent drum set, you're looking in the, you know, $1,500 to $5,000 range for a decent drum set. So realistically, to record drums, even at an okay level, you're talking 10 grand, easy, right? So for $150, a little more investment in some expansions, a couple $100 out the door, you can write, record, track your own drums. And most people are doing this now. A lot of us, you know, bedroom guitarists, especially rock and metal guys, you know, we want to just get a good sound. So we have a riff, you know, you tap in the thing, you find a pattern, and then you just you go, right? And then even stuff like, you know, a good amp sound, right? So a nice tube amp, you're running, you know, $500 for a head, couple hundred for a cab, you know, you're $1,000 out the door. You got to get a microphone. You have to have a space where you can turn it up, and it will often not sound that great if you really analyze it and A/B it against software. So now you're talking, okay, that process is super rewarding. I think everyone needs to learn how to mic up guitar amps. I think everyone needs to learn how to mic up drums. I think everyone needs to, you know, invest their time and energy into learning these things. But for the guy, it's like, I got some ideas. I want to put a band together. I want to put a sound together. I want to get it to where I can show my friends in the band, you know, we can get something together. You know, minimal investment, maximum return. But if you're talking, okay, we got our sound, we have a real drummer, we have real guitars, we're gonna, you know, we want to make a studio quality album on our own. Yes, there's guys who are capable of doing this. There's guys who have spent the time and the money and the years invested, they can do it. But for a lot of us, you know, even just getting into the right space to record that stuff, or having a producer, it's like, yeah, you know, you may want to dial in this sound this way, or you may want to, you know, let's re-record that. That wasn't quite a good take, and let's adjust some of these levels. And I think the most valuable thing when it comes to studio time right now is, say for example, the scenario of a rock or metal band, or I could be talking about anything, you know, a classical pianist, you know, a solo orchestral player, a jazz player, or even a small ensemble. There's a lot to be benefited from as far as, you know, farming out some of the work to your local studio. Plus you support the infrastructure of musicians, which is great. So I think there is a point where it's worth the investment. But the biggest thing that I think is worth the investment is paying someone who knows what they're doing and knows your sound a little bit to mix. And again, this goes back to some of us have been burned, right? We sent in tracks, someone did a mix, it didn't turn out how we wanted. We said, what am I going to do now? I'll just do it all myself. And a lot of times you just kind of live with it, right? You slaved away 100 hours on a track, and it's like, it is what it is, man, right? But I think paying someone who knows what they're doing for good mixing and mastering services is 1,000% worth the effort. I know of a couple guys through Instagram and through friends that they'll master songs for $50, $100 a track, and it'll get it that radio volume consistency. And then of course, if you really want to go deeper, you know, there's people that'll take it farther, right? But mixing services, so you know, you've recorded all on your own or been to a local studio and you have all the raw files. You have stems, right? Printed tracks of everything that you did. I think having someone who really has an ear for that sound and that style, you send those tracks in, you know, you pay a reasonable rate, and you get back a really polished quality product. Plus, most mixers will take a couple revisions. You're like, okay, I really like this mix. I checked it out on a couple sources, and, you know, I really think the X thing should be higher. You know, vocals are a little muddy. Guitars are a little low. I'm like, okay. And they go back in, boom, 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 boom. Sent. You know, in today's day and age, we can all communicate quickly. You know, you can communicate with that producer that's working out of a mixing space, that's working out of a bedroom studio with a little higher end gear than what you can afford, right? Just take advantage of all the opportunities and the optimizations that are out there for the musician who's on a budget, who's, you know, they don't have, you don't necessarily have the time and energy and money to, you know, afford a really like top class, you know, you're not going to rent out $1 million studio for days at a time, right? Most of us live in the real world. Even label signed bands, you know, they're on reasonable budgets. But there's a lot of opportunity now to get a quality finished product without having to spend the big budgets of the days of old. And I think just leaning on other people, outsourcing some of those tedious tasks or outsourcing some of those really high knowledge mixing duties can really bring a lot of peace back to the band. You know, you're a creator, you're a songwriter, you're a musician. It's hard to have every single one of those hats worn in the mixing, recording, producing world. Not to say you can't be all of the above. You know, you can be the one-stop shop. You can do artwork, you can do recording, you can do writing, singing, producing, all of that. But that's a lot to do. You know, take some of the burden off yourself. And don't be afraid to invest in yourself. I think that's the biggest thing I'm trying to point out here is invest your time, invest your money in yourself. Don't be afraid to, you know, reach out to somebody that you know that they're going to do a good job and help you. You know, there's guys out there offering reamping services for guitars. There's guys out there, you know, offering producing for reasonable rates. There's a lot out there you can take advantage of. And I don't know how much longer, you know, the big budget studio is really going to be a thing. I mean, software has come a long way. You know, knowledge base has come a long way. People are, you know, investing in treating rooms in their house for cheap. You know, they're learning how to properly acoustically tune to a room or using software to manually correct their monitors, right? There may come a day when, you know, you can just plug straight into a computer, your guitar, your mics, your whatever, and accomplish it all with a minimum of software. And we're really close already. I mean, there's so much out there. So really, I just wanted to do a thought piece. I wanted to talk about, you know, is studio time worth it? When is it worth it to invest in services? Should I build out my own home studio? And I'll leave that up to you. This is just mainly to get a dialogue going. Like, let's look around. Let's see how the paradigm has shifted in our recent times, and let's look at what's out there. There's options. There's availability of all kinds of technology, software, hardware, and companies are really competing for that space. I think the producer space right now is evolving like boom, boom, boom. There's something new coming out every other year, and you can really take advantage of it. Like, don't be afraid as a artist and a musician to take advantage of what's out there. And be yourself, you know, get your ideas out there, you know, just to hear yourself playing and getting a song idea out as quickly as possible. It's possible to build up a great workflow right now. So to wrap this up, I just produced a track this last weekend with my own software. I paid legally for every piece of software. No pirating, no nonsense. You know, I own a lot of Tune Track products, JST, Slate, you know, all that stuff. I use all that stuff, right? But I don't currently have my own space. I don't have a PC anymore. I don't have an interface. So I have all my software licenses. So I set up my studio at another space at my friend's house down the street because he has a much more optimized space. And I recorded a fully mixed, full demo studio quality track. It's an instrumental. I didn't write vocals and record vocals on the spot, but I did drums, like 6 different layers of guitars and bass, wrote and recorded it on the spot in about 3 hours. And that finished product is available on my YouTube channel. It's my new song called Reboot. I really encourage you to check it out. Leave some feedback if you're interested in what I'm doing. And if you want to, you know, contribute, just shoot me a comment. I try to get through all the comments. I try to communicate as much as I can with the new fans. You know, the comment system, the reporting is a little slow. Like, I don't always see things as they pop up, but I'm trying to really respond to people that have questions and feedback that's a little more detailed than just like, hey, what's up? And you know what? I love it all. To see people responding to some of my more recent videos has really given me a lot of inspiration and drive to step it up with my YouTube channel. So 2019 is looking really good. Trying to get the partnership back, trying to keep interest high, and I really appreciate that these long form videos seem to be resonating with people. I'm trying to pick good topics. If you want me to talk about something controversial, debate something, I'm all about it. Just give me ideas, shoot me up, hit me up in the comments, shoot me some suggestions. I'm all about it. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate everything that's been happening in this last week. Thank you.